All right, welcome in. We've got 75 Division One college basketball games getting ready to tip off here on the Friday edition of the College Basketball Tip-Off Show. They tend to let college football wind down, and then, of course, we get these monster Saturday slates, but we don't mind a little Friday action here because we got much to go over, including 3 best bets coming your way. 3 big game breakdowns, and of course, 3 of the finest, if not the most profitable at WagerTalk.com. When it comes to college hoops, Jeff Michaels in the house. Bryan Leonard here, ready to roll, as is Mr. Vino. Rob Vino. Gentlemen, welcome in. Loaded card here on a Friday, so let's start right off the bat with a big matchup in Ohio. Shocker, Jeff Michaels is going to talk a little bit. Ohio State taking on A&M. Ohio State at home. You would think there would be maybe a little bit of an advantage to that, or does A&M's experience kind of wipe that right off the table? Who do you like in this one, Jeff?
Yeah, I do think that the edge here for home field edge for Ohio State is going to be something that's obviously going to come into play throughout the season. And Ohio State has had some pretty impressive recruiting classes the last couple of years. I mean, only 5 of the top 10 teams have done it in consecutive years. Of the top 10 recruiting classes have done it in consecutive years. And Ohio State's one of them. I mean, last year they brought in 4 of the top 100 freshmen, and this year they bring in 3 of the top 50 freshmen. And the only one they lost from last year was Sensabaugh, who got drafted in the first round. But I think you hit the nail on the head here, Joe. Texas A&M has that experience factor. I mean, they're bringing back 4 returning starters, and they went 15-3 last year in an impressive SEC conference. And the 5th guy who's expected to be in A&M starting rotation throughout the year is going to be Jace Carter, who was 2nd team All Missouri Valley last year. So not exactly a new guy to the college basketball world. They have the experience, they have the talent, and they have high expectations based off of what they did last year. The biggest concern for this Ohio State team last season, without question, was their defense. And they didn't really get off to the greatest start here. They played Oakland from the Horizon League, and they allowed 73 points in that game to Oakland in their debut. Ohio State, we said it. I think that they do have an advantage. It's an exciting arena to play in, but Ohio State really hasn't been able to take advantage of it in the last 2 years. They're just 5-10 against the spread as a home favorite in the last 2 years. And you have an A&M team that is a dog against a non-conference opponent for just the 2nd time since the start of last year. And they covered the only other opportunity against Memphis last season on the road. And they're actually 8-3 against the spread in true road games over the last 2 seasons. So I'm going with the Aggies in this one on the road, picking against my Ohio State Buckeyes here. Give me A&M.
Wow. That went hard left. I did not see an A&M Aggies pick coming out of you there, but should be a good one coming up a little bit later here today. And by the way, if you are new to us here at Wager Talk TV, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, as when it comes to college basketball content all throughout the season, nobody has more of it than we do. Plenty of top 25, top 50 matchup head-to-head videos, along with more best bets and previews, everything you need to know to make it a profitable college basketball season. Just a click away, hit that subscribe button, become part of the Wager Talk TV family. As we head over to Bryan Leonard, he is going to drop some knowledge here as we hang out in the Rust Belt here. Is Youngstown State taking on Michigan? Now, a lot of people looked at this Michigan team into this season and were like, yeah, they're going to be an instant fade. And boy, oh boy, they handled a pretty good mid-major there the first time out. What are they going to do against another pretty good mid-major here in Youngstown State?
I'm glad you brought that up, because a lot of the way I make money is to fade what people see recently. And you mentioned it, Michigan. I believe it was on this show last week that one of us gave out Michigan. I won't name who it was, but I think it was somebody from was fading Michigan. I believe it was somebody from Ohio. I wonder who that was.
Yeah.
Anyway, if I
Neither here
it's
nor
only if I
there.
remember
Neither here nor
correctly.
there.
Only if I remember correctly. But yeah, I'm going to go back and I'm going to play that. And I think we've got even a better deal on this one. But the Penguins are a proven commodity. They won the Horizon League last year. And although they did lose 3 double-digit scorers in the offseason, this is still a very well-coached program. They returned only 20% of minutes from a year ago. But this tempo offense is built for quality athletes. And because of the way this team plays, they were able to bring in a solid group of transfers ready to join the Penguin party. This is an upperclassman-driven team that has tasted success a year ago and is primed for more of the same. I like this Youngstown State team. I think this is a squad that maybe not do quite as well as it did last year, but I think they'll be in contention in that conference this year. And our ratings have Youngstown State in the same area as that NC Asheville game that you talked about. And the Wolverines were laying 10.5 to the Bulldogs, and now they're laying 17 to the Penguins. That's an overreaction. And that's something that we could take advantage of here. Michigan only won 18 games last season, arguably have less talent this year. They had two players drafted in the NBA draft, and they don't have that any longer. And while the strength of this Penguins team will be the offense, Michigan will have to do it with defense. They have the bodies to do so, but this isn't your older brothers Wolverines team, as you mentioned. This is a team right now that wins with defense and is going to struggle offensively. And this point spread, when you're laying 17 points, you've got to score something offensively. And I just don't think they have the ability to do that. I think Youngstown State gives them a scare here. I take the 17 points with Youngstown State. Is this offense has a lot of different abilities to put points on the board, and they lost the first game. So they're going to come out focused while Michigan's coming off that blowout win. So I think we get an overrated Wolverines team here. So give me Youngstown State plus the 17.
All right, it's a good spot here. A little overreaction, recency bias here watching Michigan handle Asheville there, but should be an interesting one. Chalk one up maybe for the mid majors there tonight with Youngstown State as we welcome in Mr. Rob Vino. And Vino, I got to ask you a question, man, since for as long as we can remember, anytime we're talking Wisconsin basketball, it's can you stay awake long enough to finish watching the game? They drop 105 friggin' points in the first game, Vino. Like 3 games you could put Wisconsin together. They don't score 105 points, but they just did. Is that a sign of things to come here against Tennessee? What are we doing here tonight?
Man, it's a good thing you have me and my notes here to help you through that, Joe. And if there's an alarm, if you or Robert has some kind of trick alarm that you can set off because I'm about to say under, then go ahead and sound the alarms because I'm going to play it under, which is not typical fashion for myself. But hey, Rick Barnes versus Greg Gard, that should be enough said right there, right? To force you to play under. But we'll get a little deeper into it. Both of these guys, for those who don't know, the philosophies are predicated on strong defense. They do it in a little bit different fashion. Tennessee's a little more aggressive. Wisconsin, a little more passive, play more like of an amoeba type defense, but still they get the job done. The end results are both the same. After one game, albeit versus, an Ohio Valley team, Tennessee Tech, Tennessee already ranks number 1 in adjusted defensive rating and number 291 in adjusted tempo. So right into form because last year their finishing numbers on the season, number 1 in adjusted defensive rating, number 288 in adjusted tempo. So they're right in line with what they did last year. Tennessee's been top 5 defensive rating 3 straight years under head coach Barnes. So again, they've got some newcomers, Joe, but the beat should go on the same with this team. Tennessee predicated on defense here. You expect the pace to be very, very methodical in Wisconsin and Tennessee fashion. That pace is used to control the games and keep them lower scoring. It helps that you have good defense, but when you play real slow, it helps keep the score down as well. Wisconsin's average possession length, 349th in the country last year, and their opponent's length was 327 per possession. So when you hold the ball, and you're the slowest to shoot a shot 349 and your opponent's the slowest to shoot a shot 322, it's a slow game. Let's get to your point, Joe, about 105 points. Wisconsin played an 81 possession game. Throw the streamers, the confetti, all that nonsense. They played Arkansas State, but I wouldn't get carried away thinking some sort of change is developing in Madison. The change is in Arkansas State. First year head coach Brian Hodgson, who's implemented an extreme up-tempo pace. And let's guess why. Because he was an assistant coach at Alabama
Nate Oates guy.
under Nate Oates. And anybody who knows Nate Oates knows that we're going to, score 105. So they played fast. Obviously, they had no regard for the other side. Arkansas State took a shot every 13.2 seconds. For Wisconsin, they took a shot every 16 seconds. That's extremely fast for them, but I wouldn't expect that to continue. Another thing when you're playing these unders, you want the teams to not have second chances. The defensive rebounding on each side here is really good. And you don't want to have turnovers. And the guard play for both of these teams is exceptional, especially at the point. Chucky Hepburn for Wisconsin, he's a veteran. You look at the other side. Remember what happened to Tennessee last year, Joe, when Ziegler, the point guard, went out. And all of a sudden, things came crashing down on Tennessee. Ziegler's back now. Played 13 minutes off the bench the other night. You combine him with Santiago Vescovi, who seems like he's been there for 5 years shooting threes, but they have a veteran backcourt as well. So I don't think you'll be able to force a lot of turnovers here. I think it's kind of like a tournament style game, right? Possessions are valued. Shots are at a premium. Wisconsin generally plays low foul shooting games. You don't get a lot of attempts at the free throw line when you're playing Wisconsin. As long as that stays in line here, this probably has a ceiling of 66-63, which is 129. So I'll take under the total.
And I'd be shocked if they score 105 points in the next 3 games combined, Wisconsin. But it should be a fun one to watch, sort of, with Tennessee and Wisconsin getting ready to do battle. All right, we got 3 big game breakdowns. Now it is time to start the best bet train here, and we're going to kick it back to Jeff Michaels, who's going to look at an ACC team here in NC State. Talk to us here about NC State here. What do you like about this matchup?
Yeah, Joe, obviously I respect what the other guys say about their games. So I was sitting here listening, and it almost made me feel like I was reading my notes for this game, because I think 2 of the biggest things that stand out are an overreaction from the previous game, and it not being because of them, but being because of their previous opponent. And that's exactly why I had Abilene Christian circled here. They kind of shocked the world in their opener. They're coming off of a big upset against Oklahoma State, but one, I think that is looking at a little bit of an overreaction spot here. Also, because I think that game was more of a knock on Oklahoma State than it was a hurrah for this Abilene Christian team. I mean, Oklahoma State in that game against Abilene in their season opener went 5 for 23 from 3-point range and 8 for 20 from the free throw line. OK State isn't going to beat a whole lot of teams, doesn't matter what division they're in, shooting those kind of numbers, especially from the free throw line when you're taking uncontested shots, obviously. I mean, this Abilene Christian team was 13-17 last year, and their biggest win on the season came against Seattle. So you got to be hoping for a turnaround here. Brett Tanner's in his second Brett Tanner ended a 4 straight season 20-plus game winning streak for this Abilene Christian team, and they won 25 games in their WAC debut season 2 years ago. But last year, like I mentioned, finished with just 13, which is why I got to be back in NC State here and the Wolfpack. I mean, granted, they do only have 2 returning starters on NC State as well, but they're coming off a season where they beat Duke and UNC in the same season for the first time since 2014. I mean, that goes to show you there with those kind of rivalries, what kind of anticipation they're living up to this season. but they've been trending in the exact opposite direction of that Abilene Christian team in the recent years. I mean, in 2021, NC State recorded just 11 wins on the year. Last year, they turn it around and get 23, and they bring in an impressive recruiting class here. So, I did go back, look in the database, and college basketball underdogs of 4 points or more in just the second game of the season, coming off of a road win, have covered just 24.3% of games since 2013. And when you factor in the fact that that opening win was an upset win as an underdog, those teams only have covered 20% of the second game as a dog. So that momentum hasn't really carried over in recent situations. And I do think that that was a slow start for OK State. And I think we kind of snap back to reality here. So I'm taking NC State tonight, laying the 10.5 points against Abilene Christian.
All right, not expecting magic twice in a row there. NC State there for Jeff Michaels. And that brings us to Brian Leonard, who is another intriguing game, though, but a contrast of styles here. Brian's going to be looking at BYU taking on San Diego State. Unless San Diego State has changed it up a little bit, you got one team going to want to run, the other team ain't going to allow them to run. So what gives here?
Yeah, the Aztecs are coming off a magical season, which saw them play the national championship game last year. And this is a program that's had great success out west, but to expect anything close to what happened last year would have to be a stretch. The Aztecs had a ton of experience on that team last year. This year, a lot of that experience is gone. But still, this is San Diego State, and they've won 19 games or more in 18 straight seasons. So that success could be attributed to an excellent ball hawking defense. And we expect more of the same this year. And they've added some quality depth in the backcourt. So that would be another very good team here. Maybe they'll be able to score a little bit more than they had in the past. But the major defensive concern here at this point is rim protection. If the Aztecs can get that, this team could be dangerous once again. But they did lose a major shot blocker last year. They've got some taller guys that are there this year, but they haven't done it. But they have the body size to be able to do that. And if that comes true, San Diego State will be going long in the tournament once again this year. But BYU, for years, battled San Diego State in the Mountain West Conference, and then they moved on to the West Coast Conference. But now they're in the Big 12. And the talent in this conference could affect the Cougars come league play. But I think it'll be a positive moving forward, playing the tougher teams each and every day. I know when they played out here in the Mountain West Conference, there was usually 3 or 4 teams that were elite in the conference. And the same with the West Coast, 3 teams that are very good there. But now they're playing in the deepest conference in college basketball in the Big 12. So we'll see the toll it takes on this BYU team as the season goes on. But BYU under Mark Pope excels in 3-point shooting. But that wasn't the case last year. They were a lousy team shooting from 3. And if that's what your bread and butter is, and you're not hitting it, you're not going to have a good year. So we look for a major improvement from shooting distance this year. They went out and recruited a couple of guys from other transfers they brought in that could hit that. So that's something that I expect better out of the Cougars this year. And they're big and talented up front, which should be a sizable advantage in this contest. This is a very tough place to play, and the fans are known to go a little overboard. I've been to many Mountain West Conference tournaments here in Las Vegas, and I don't think I can remember a game that BYU played where the fans didn't get into some fistfights. So this is a rabid, intense fan base in BYU, and I'm sure they'll be even bigger this year when they're playing in a better conference. But a very tough place to play, and very tough place to play. And our concerns with the Cougars will be depth, facing an onslaught of talent in the Big 12. But that's later on in the year. As of right now, they're healthy, they're young, and I think they're good enough and fresh enough to be able to take care of the Aztecs here. It's not often you see a team like San Diego State, the money comes in against them. But we agree with that line move now. We played BYU minus the 2. And this should be a hell of a game to watch.
Laying it with BYU. Aztecs 4-30 all time in Provo. And he is not lying when he says this is a tough place to play there. It's Provo, Utah. Have you ever been? Not a lot to do except get into fights over college basketball teams there. That is for sure there. All right, Rob, Vino, did they really shoot up 43 threes in that game against Houston Christian? My goodness. Like, wow, Coach Pope. Wow. What are we going to do here, Vino? I do think it's a familiar game. One that we might have just heard about, and only you're going to. If you're taking an under in this game, I'm walking offset here. No way am I going to get 2 unders in the same show with you, my man. What are you doing?
Well, listen, first thing is, where this Michaels family is concerned, I'm getting a little tired of it. We do college football show on Wednesday, and 3 Wednesdays in a row, I go to submit a game only to find out that Ralph either has that game already chosen or he slides it in 5 seconds before I can type it in. It's unbelievable that I hear Jeff start talking about Abilene Christian. I'm like, how in the oh man, if I could date myself, it's like the old Flintstones cartoon where Fred and Wilma and Barney and Betty park their car outside a hotel that has vacancy, and they decide whether or not they want to go into that hotel. And while they decide, 70 cars pull in and there's no vacancy anymore. That's the way I feel with the 2 Michaels here on these games. But for those watching, Ralph and I had the same exact game on the NBA show the other day. Ralph had first half, I had full game, and we combined to hit a parlay. So maybe me and Jeff can team up to do the same here. I'm going to play this game over, Joe. Listen, I got tricked by your head coach, your boy, Mike Boynton, in that first game. I played Abilene in Oklahoma State over the total because never believe what Mike Boynton's saying about offense because he's always about defense. But he recruited and brought in what he claimed were capable scoring threats, and they may prove out to be throughout the season, right? But it didn't happen in game 1. 64-59, Abilene wins that one, only gets to 123. It's a severe under. And NC State 72-59 against Citadel, another severe under. So like Jeff said, I think there's misleading numbers in both of those season openers here, which leads me to over 146.5. Oklahoma State, again, just to reiterate a couple of things here, they look like the same old lousy shooting team on Tuesday in their opener against Abilene Christian. And remember, Abilene Christian allowed the 10th worst field goal percentage in the nation last year. And Oklahoma State still couldn't shoot the ball. They're 5 of 23 from 3, so on down the line. Abilene Christian ran into a pretty good defense. This is a team that returns a lot of scoring and a lot of capability on the offensive end. But maybe a few jitters, maybe playing in Gallagher-Iba got to them a little bit. They didn't play well offensively. Still, they were able to win. For NC State, it's a little bit different, right? They play Citadel, and in years past, Joe, 72-59 against Citadel, you would think that's the first half, the way they used to play under Duggar Balcom, the previous head coach. In fact, when he was head coach, they were top 10 in offensive pace 7 of his 8 years. And now, of course, you switch to Ed Conroy, who's slow as molasses at Citadel. Coached at Tulane for quite a few years. They were constantly 290 or worse in in offensive tempo. And he's bringing that to Citadel. So that score not indicative of, previous Citadel teams. NC State got a little bit slowed down. And let's not forget that NC State's incorporating 6 or 7 new transfer portal players into this lineup. Now, they've got a bunch of good ones. And it's why I'm on over here, because I think, the style matchup works for both. They would both rather play faster than what they played in their first games. And they're both going to have better defensive matchups here, I would think. Not that Citadel's a great defense, but Abilene is not. NC State scoring should prove out in this one. Just a quick hit on their transfers. DJ Horn, point guard for Bobby Hurley last year, now on NC State. Stanford's point guard, Michael McConnell, now on NC State. And I think it was 4 for 5 from 3-point range in that opening game. And Butler's leading scorer, Jaden Taylor, if you can average 13 a game at Butler, you're really doing something. That equates to like 20 on any other team in the nation. So they've got really good backcourt players here on this team. I'm going to look at it this way. I think the pace that each team wants to go at happens here. Obviously, Kevin Keats, again, enough said about a head coaching style. He wants to go. Neither side's currently known for defense. And I would argue that in a lot of instances, when you bring in a bunch of newcomers, it's harder to gain continuity defensively and play on a string, so to speak, than it is offensively. A lot of guys can go. I think there's value in this total just based off first game results. I think this game probably gets 149 or better. 150s is no surprise at all here. So I'm going to try it, Joe. I think they both get back to what they do best. They both score points. And no, you don't have to raise the flag of me coming on here and preaching two unders. I'll give you an over here. Abilene Christian, NC State over 146.5.
I'm telling you, I was waiting for that under, but I was going to have to, what was going on here, man? Two unders in the same show for Rob Vino. I'd have never dreamed it. Thank goodness he went over there with Abilene and NC State. All right, let's take a look, recap it one more time for you here. Vino, he just heard him going up and over NC State. Brian, he going to go BYU back in the home team here tonight against San Diego State. Jeff likes that Abilene Christian NC State game. He's going to take the favorite there. He's going to lay it with NC State. A little comeback down to reality for Abilene Christian. And there you got it here, guys. College basketball off and running, our first week in the books, but we got so much more content available for you here. Plenty of other great matchups coming up tonight. Arizona taking on Duke for one. All you got to do is click on that video on your screen right now, and you'll get access to all of our top 25, top 50 college basketball head-to-head matchups, previews, plus more best bets just a click away. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Come back and join us again next week for more of the College Basketball Tip-Off Show. Until then, best of luck with your plays this weekend. We'll see you on Monday.